So, here is my firewall build. Now, I am basing my build off of Kriparion's Firewall Sorcerer build. The only difference is that I am using a different variant of it that I'm kind of trying to design myself. I'm mostly using Kriparion's build as a reference. But since we're hardcore, I'm trying to build a bit more defensively. So, a couple things to note that I'm doing differently is that enchantments, I'm not using Meteor because Meteor is great for damage and whatnot, but I felt like running Flame Shield enchantment is just like the best defensive tool that Sorks have available to them because it's actually just like prevent fatal damage one time every 2 minutes, right? So I'm using that just for hardcore. If I wasn't running hardcore, definitely would be doing the Meteor variant. But since we're not doing the Meteor variant, that also lets us change our skill tree a little bit to run different things. Um, so pretty much all this is whatever. You don't really care about it. I am going for potent warding instead of going for devastation. Cool thing about the firewall build is that we don't need any core skills. There are some variants that use a fireball version just for better clear. Because firewall is a damage over time ability. Um, so if you'd rather have enemies explode on death to help clear things faster, you can do that, but not necessary. So we just grab some passives instead. And then we also are able to, since we don't have 5 points in Meteor anymore, actually, technically, you would put like 7 points to grab this as well. I can put points elsewhere. So we have each of the defensive skills active. Obviously, you max Frost over because it's the most powerful ability in the game, in my opinion. Due to just making enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds, 6 seconds against bosses, and freezing enemies for quite a large duration, which you can scale with crowd control duration. Um, then it also lets us grab ice armor. So we put some of those points that we would have put in Meteor, and we put them into this instead. So that way we don't have to find it um, just from an amulet. Which then lets us also grab the passives of mana regen, and enemies that hit you while it's active have a chance to become frozen. This actually procs pretty often, and it's very satisfying when you see a big, burly, uh, like a giant, like elite try to attack you with a melee attack, and they just get frozen. And it's even more satisfying when you see a bunch of archers get frozen while they're hitting you when you have ice armor on, and they all get frozen from distance. Because there's no range limiter to this. If an enemy hits you while you have this active, they have a chance to become frozen no matter where they are, which is very cool. And then you could grab this if you just want more barrier, but our barriers are already really strong. It's already giving us a 1000 damage barrier. We don't really need this at all. But anyways, then we move on to the conjuration skills, which we don't use any of them. I feel like some people will take precision magic if they are relying more on lucky hits. If I were doing the meteor variant, I would probably try to grab precision magic instead, but we're not doing that. So instead, I grab all 3 points of mana shield, all 3 points of align the elements, all 3 points of protection. Sorcerers, I feel like these three passives make sorcerers one of the tankiest builds in the game, one of the tankiest classes. Very surprising that a mage would be the most tanky, but there it is. And then we also grab Icy Veil. I was originally doing this one because I didn't realize that it was crit hits that reset cooldown. So if you're doing crits, this might be a good idea to take, especially if you scale up the lucky hit. But we don't do crits. We scale off crit damage, but we don't do crits. So we take this instead. And then obviously you want to max out Firewall. I do need to get a +3 or +4 mastery um, amulet to scale that even higher to like rank 12 or so. But I don't have one right now. But we grab obviously enhanced firewall and then mage's firewall. I originally was going with this because it was like, oh man, I can have mana regen. But then I watched Kriparion's guide, his original guide, and he was talking about how this one's better because enemies continue to take the snapshot of damage 3 seconds after leaving the firewall, and it's pretty much hard to play without this because if you didn't have this, it'd be like as soon as enemies walk out of your firewall, they stop taking damage, which is bad. You want them to be taking damage as long as possible, basically. And then yeah, inner flames and crippling flames, both of them. So you do still need some lucky hit for crippling flames, which just has a chance to immobilize enemy, which lets us benefit from any crowd control bonuses and immobilize bonuses and such stuff like that. And then obviously this just gives us more damage when we're healthy. And we are always healthy because of this node here. Warmth. Every 1 second, you heal for about 1% of your maximum life for each nearby burning enemy. Meaning that we are a close range build. And when we're close range to mobs, we're constantly healing. So we're constantly healing. So we're constantly healthy. So we benefit a lot from anything healthy in our build. Obviously, we want Endless Pyre. I do have +1 rank on this from my amulet right now because I felt like it was a nice damage bonus. The longer they're burning, the more damage they take. And then we don't really upgrade this. We just want it for the lead-in. And then I grab all 3 points of Inferno. Some variants of this build will use Deep Freeze because it's very defensive, but I don't think there's a reason to with how much barrier uptime that this build has and how tanky we can be. So we just grab all 3 points of Inferno and then Combustion because big damage. So that is what we're doing for the skill tree. Now let me move into aspects real quick. We're pretty much taking all the aspects that you would normally take with a build like this. We're going for, this one's not important. I'm actually going to change this one eventually. It's just all that I had at the moment. But obviously get a barrier when damaging an elite enemy every 30 seconds. Not important at all, but still kind of useful. This one's a bit more useful though. The ever living one, you take % less damage from crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies, which we do a lot of crowd control and we do vulnerable with Frost Nova, so we should pretty much always be benefiting from this. Exploiters aspect is also fantastic because you get % additive increased crowd control duration, which means that our freezes last longer, our chills last longer, immobilize last longer. And then when enemies are unstoppable, which there is actually a Nightmare Sigil affix that makes enemies unstoppable and below 30% health, I think. So we benefit from this a lot. I do need to high roll this. Sadly, we kind of mid rolled it, but 35% more damage to unstoppable enemies. Pretty nice for those situations. We kind of just like negate that affix if we have this on our gear. And for my pants, I just have the armor stacking. Pretty much every build in the game should have the armor stacking one, unless you like really need something else for whatever reason. Because armor is just a fantastic stat to get due to resistances being pretty much useless at the moment because of how much better armor is at reducing non-physical damage. Which I believe it's like armor negates or mitigates 50% non-physical damage or something like that of how much armor you have. It's a little confusing, but some people have guides about how it works and whatnot. And the most different thing from a lot of other firewall builds you'll see is that I'm using Penitent Greaves. Now, I'm mostly using this just because they dropped, and I was like, wow, that seems really cool. That seems really fun. But I also didn't get a Rymant to drop. Most people use the Teleport unique, where when you teleport onto a pack of enemies, it groups them together, stuns them. That is fantastic CC and also fantastic for this build because then we can just chain into Frost Nova, freeze everything, Inferno them, and then stack firewalls onto that pack of mobs, and they'll just die instantly pretty much. But I don't have that. So I'm using this instead because this is basically just constant crowd control. Chill is a form of crowd control in this game, and these boosts also give us more crowd control duration. meaning that we're just constantly making everything CC'd so it can benefit from things like um, ever living and exploiters, as well as some other things that we're using. And then applying a lot of chill to enemies will eventually freeze them as well. And I've actually seen enemies be frozen by this somehow. I don't know how it works. I thought you'd have to do like cold damage to freeze them or something, but it seems like eventually they just freeze. But we also do 10% more damage to chilled enemies. So that's also really strong. So I'm basically just always doing 10% more damage so long as we are leading enemies through our chill trail, which for some reason isn't showing up on screen at the moment. That's kind of weird. It's supposed to be. I don't know why it's not. Um, but I'll get more into this as well because there's also another cool combination that we can do with the Paragon board with this. I haven't tested it, but I might test it soon. Moving on to the weapon, I am using a two-handed just because I haven't found a good offhand. We want to use the aspect of control on two-handed because it goes up to 70% more damage to immobilize, stunned, or frozen enemies. We're always freezing enemies with Frost Nova. We're immobilizing with our fire. We're pretty much always benefiting from that damage. And then for my accessories, I'm using deal more damage while you have a barrier, obviously, because we always get barriers from casting cooldowns, as well as from ice armor itself. We're using smiting aspect, which is also fantastic. We don't benefit from the crit chance at all, but while you are healthy, which we're always healthy because of what I explained earlier, you have more crowd control duration, which means our freezes last longer. So it doesn't show up on the tooltip from what I know with Frost Nova. It'll say like 3.87 seconds, but it's actually longer than that if you have a lot of crowd control duration. And my build has, where is it? We have almost 30% crowd control duration bonus. So that's massive. That's a lot longer. Um, so let's say if we had something that had like 10-second duration, that would go up to like 13 seconds or so, right? It's quite a bit longer. Um, then we also have good CDR. Sadly, since we're using two-handed, we can't benefit from getting uh, CDR on an offhand. I'm trying to find a good offhand. I just can't find one. I found two fantastic wands I can use, but I need a good offhand first. Then we can get our cooldown reduction up to like 37% if I manage to get an offhand, which is way, way better. You want to get as much cooldown reduction for pretty much any build as you can, but especially for Sorcerer because you want to be spamming your defensives as much as possible to keep barriers up 100% of the time. And then lastly, we're using an imprint from the Codex of Power. You can actually get this one from the Codex of Power from a dungeon. Using a cooldown gives you mana. I haven't actually found this aspect naturally out in the world in gear or anything, which is a shame because I would like to get a 25 mana one, but I've never seen one. So let me know if any of you guys have found one because I would really like one, you know? But yeah, that's pretty much the build. For aspects wise, for stats, you really want to be looking for a lot of damage reduction from burning, damage reduction from close, because we're always close to enemies, meaning we're always benefiting from these as well. And then we're always burning, so we can obviously get all the damage reduction from burning, meaning that I have 27% damage reduction from close and 45% damage reduction from burning, making this one of the tankiest builds ever. Obviously, put armor on your the armor skulls, whatever, for your jewels. I'm doing percent max life for the jewels and the armor. And I'm doing damage over time because burning damage is damage over time. So obviously you scale off that. Um, and then another thing to note for the amulet, you do want to go for plus to mastery skills and plus defensive skills. I don't have that currently, but we do have cooldown reduction. So ideally, you would want to get cooldown reduction plus mastery plus defensives, and then either like percent life I think you can get or something, or int. I'm not sure. Or even just like damage reduction from burning, which is what I have right now. All fantastic things. I need to upgrade that. And then lastly, you want to get as much crit strike damage as possible and vulnerable damage on your rings and your weapon. The reason for that is because on the Paragon tree, we are using this node right here. Wait, where is it? It's on our second board. So we go from this board up to this board, which is the, I don't know what it's called actually. I think Burning Instinct. Yeah. Your burning damage is increased by 40% of your crit strike damage, further increased by 5% for every 20 intelligence you have. My current bonus is 230%. And our crit strike damage from gear, which it only affects crit strike damage from your gear, I believe. I don't think it works off of like other things. The crit strike damage from my gear is only 147%. So that's being scaled up 80% more just from my intelligence value. So ideally you want to get as much int, you want to get as much crit strike damage as possible, and that's how we scale our damage with burning. And now I'm doing like anywhere between 30,000 to like fucking 100,000 on vulnerable enemies. Take damage from burning with Firewall. Our tooltip damage is only like 33,000%, or 33,000, but you don't really need to worry about that at all. I haven't finished my Paragon boards, but currently, yeah, we go from here with Adept because master skill damage. Firewall is a mastery skill. Once we upgrade this to 15, we'll get increased range, letting us take more passives around here. And we can get that up to like double, double this probably, like around 60% master skill damage. Then we use Exploit, which I also need to get to level 15. But for now, it's fine. We have 12% increase vulnerable damage. I was watching someone else, and they had 30% vulnerable damage from this because they upgraded it past 15. And then over here, this is the enchantment board. I don't take the enchantment master node because I don't think it's as strong for Firewall and Flame Shield as it is for Meteor. This basically just gets 1% chance more to spawn 2 firewalls. This gets 100 seconds proccing instead of 120. It's kind of whatever. So we don't really worry about Enchantment Master at the moment. I'll probably grab it eventually just because it's a little increase for us. But we mostly do it because we want to get this glyph socket. We want reinforced here. You gain 10% damage reduction while you have an active barrier, and it also increases the bonuses of the rare nodes in range. Now, these would normally be out of range if you had a reinforced glyph that was under level 15. Once you get to 15, the range increases by 1 tier, and it lets you get both of these rare nodes. So if you don't have this glyph at 15 yet, I would highly recommend you use Torch. Where's Torch? I was using it for a while. Just when I upgraded it a bit, didn't I? We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. Apparently, I didn't upgrade it at all. Here it is. For every 5 willpower purchased in range, you gain 2% increased burning damage, and then you deal 2% increased burning damage per nearby burning enemies. So it's really strong for this build. But it's not as strong as nearly doubling the rare nodes effects. So you get like nearly 40% non-physical damage and 20 int from both of these if I upgrade this one more time. So that's why I want that. And then along the path, I'm taking this for damage taken over time reduction, which isn't really that necessary, but it's on the way, so why not? I'm also grabbing Elementalist for life and non-physical damage. I'm grabbing Ruinous for non-physical damage and damage to elites. All really strong stats to take. And then I'm currently leading into this board, which is the Frigid Fate board. We don't do cold damage, even though we have those boosts at chill. Chill is not cold damage, so don't take the legendary node. unless you have some way of dealing cold damage, which I guess if you're using ice shards, this becomes really awesome, right? But we're not gonna do anything with that. We're gonna path down here, grab this damage reduction from vulnerable. For vulnerable damage, grab this glyph socket. Probably don't need to worry about chilling very much, but we might grab it anyways just because it's in range for intelligence. And then in this final glyph socket, I'm leveling up a tactician glyph, which will go in there at level 15. It's currently level 11, but that will give it more range to get both of these rare nodes, and then also make us deal 10% multiplied increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive. And I use 4 defensives for this build, 4 of them. So we'll pretty much always have 10% damage so long as I cast one of these every 4 seconds. And I believe for the last tree, we're going to be using... what is it? Let me see real quick. I think we use either Elemental Summoner maybe, or Searing Heat. I don't really remember which one. But I might use Icefall, because I was looking at this. The legendary node's really strong. Killing a frozen enemy grants you barrier for 5 seconds, meaning that so long as we kill something while Frost Nova's freeze is active, we get a barrier. But also, we benefit from chill because I'm using the boots here. We're always chilling things so long as we're close to them and leading them on a trail. So it's kind of funny. We're using Firewall to lead enemies on a path of burning, and then we're also using these, which leads them on a path of chill. It's kind of cool that those like double down like that. But yeah, Icefall also gets like damage reduction from chilled enemies, chill application, damage to chilled enemies, damage to chilled enemies, damage reduction from chilled enemies. So I might test this out as my last board and use this, because a lot of these rare nodes actually synergize super well with these boots. And that being said, you do benefit from any chilled damage, or like damage to chilled enemies. So I do have damage to chilled enemies on this ring right now. That's just straight up free 12% damage all the time, so long as enemies are standing in that path of chill. I found that these also help stagger the boss repeatedly. It slowly ticks that stagger meter. It's very slow, but it's still enough to get it to max. Usually I kill the boss before it fills up because we're doing so much burning damage. But if you do want a little bit better stagger, highly recommend trying these out. They've been working wonders for me. Constantly chilling, slowing enemies, and then do more damage. Just straight up do 10% more damage. But yeah, that's the whole build. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be playing this character until I hit level 100. I'm currently 78, very close to 80. I'm going to try to get to 85 today, and then hit 100 by the end of next week, probably, hopefully. So if you're interested, definitely come swing by the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Rathanoob. I'll put that in the description. Definitely like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.